So we're in an orchard grass, permanent grass stand that was seeded about, I think a year ago or 2 years ago. And you can see how brown it's gotten compared to where it was back in January before the cold weather hits. We had a wind chill factor in the Fraser Valley of -20 with one-day winds clocked as much as 98 kilometers an hour. So that really drives the cold into the grass, and it kills the top part of the tissues off. So if you look at it, it looks a lot worse than what it is, and we'll show you some close-ups where we pulled some of the grass apart. With the really cold winds, what ends up happening is that the plants, the most tender part of the plant is the top part, the new growth of the plant, and that's what gets burnt out in the wind so bad. And you can see once you move away some of the dead parts, there is a lot of green below, and the plant should survive quite nicely. One thing that I look for when I pull it out is that, are the bottoms white and are they healthy? And yes, they are. It's just the top 2 or 3 inches of the plant, which is the most tender part of the plant, that's got burnt away. So I think the cover crops will be okay. The biggest concern is that we've lost maybe 25 to 30% of the yield that we would have had before the cold weather came in. The concern we have now, and in particular I have one farmer that basically said, I'm not going to buy the alfalfa, it's too expensive. This was back in September, and he said, I'm just going to feed about a lot more corn silage, and as soon as my first cut grass comes in and my cover crop comes in, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to then start feeding, cut my corn way back in half, maybe to 40 pounds, and then start feeding my cover crop, and that will save me money versus buying the alfalfa. But the problem now that happens is that we won't have that really heavy first cut grass coming in. We probably have lost 30–40% of it, like we were saying. And not only that, the second cut's probably going to be heavier than the first cut, which happened maybe 7–8 years ago, the same kind of situation. So the concern we have now is that if you're feeding a lot of corn silage, you have to make sure you go out and you do the inventory count in your bunker. The worst thing you want to have happen is that you start running out of corn in July and August. Then you're in major trouble because now you're spending really big bucks on the alfalfa hay. So my best advice to everybody now is to do an inventory count of what you have in inventory. If you feel you have to buy some more alfalfa, that's probably your cheapest method of going about it. There's some hay in Montana that's selling below $300 a ton. The stuff in eastern Washington is quite expensive. Alberta is quite expensive. So some of these big bales coming up from Montana seem to be priced fairly reasonable. So that might be your best thing, to get on the phone right away before everybody else does. Book some alfalfa down, an extra load or 2 loads, and then make sure you have it in inventory so when your grass comes in, and there isn't that much there, you can increase your alfalfa hay by 50%, whatever, so you get coverage. The last thing you want to do is, like I was saying earlier, is running out of corn silage in June or July. That is not a good scenario to have. Now you're going to end up feeding a little bit of grass with almost straight alfalfa. So that combination simply doesn't put milk back in the tank again. So again, assess your situation, take a look around. The oldest seedings are usually hit the hardest. Those ones most definitely should be plowed up, put into corn, and then also look at reseeding a lot more grass than you probably had thought about in January, because that'll pay dividends back again too with higher yields coming later in the year. So again, assess your situation, look at your corn bunkers, buy alfalfa sooner than later because it's going to be a lot cheaper. A lot of this alfalfa has been picked over, and that's another big thing there as well too. We just don't want to have spending really big bucks on alfalfa that was virtually feeder hay quality 6 months ago. Early in the season you wouldn't have bought it. Now you're paying absolutely top dollar for it, and the quality has gone down. So before everybody else comes out there and assesses the situation, get on the phone to your hay broker, start looking for some extra alfalfa, start feeding some right now, and cut back on some of your corn as well too, and try and preserve things as long as you can.